It's now 3 o'clock, so I call the Board of Trustees meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Janet.
Here's John now. Good. Mary, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hoagie?
Here.
Ms. Hurd?
Here.
Mr. Corrado? Ms. Hairston?
Present.
Ms. Howard?
Present.
Ms. Jones? Mr. Lumpkin?
Here.
And Mr. Williamson?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All the board members received the agenda prior to today's meeting. Are there any corrections or changes to that agenda?
I will be making the report, the planning committee report.
Yes, Janet Jones is on her way down from Cleveland and probably will be late, so if she doesn't show, Adrian will be making the report and we'll change the agenda to incorporate that. I'll now entertain a motion that we approve the agenda as corrected.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Also, as has been our custom, all of the minutes of the preceding meeting have been mailed to all of the board members well in advance of today's meeting. Unless a board member requests a reading of those minutes, I ask, are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing no request for a reading of the minutes or any corrections or additions to the minutes, let the record show that these minutes are approved as submitted. Okay, we now go on to the committee reports. We go to the Finance and Personnel Committee, and they have 2 action items that need approval. Sharon.
The Finance, Personnel, and Planning Committees met for a jointly held meeting on February 16th. As a result of the Finance Personnel Committee is recommending 2 action items for the board's consideration. Action item number 2, light transit vehicles for the 5310 Federal Grant Program. The Greater Dayton RTA is a regional partner in the 5310 Federal Grant Program, which is designed to improve transportation options to the senior and disabled community. This program will fund 1, the purchase of small buses and vans to be used by RTA and partner agencies, 2, mobility access improvements throughout RTA's service area, and 3, mobility management and vehicle maintenance. This program is administered by the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, MVRPC, and the federal grant is managed by RTA. Mr. Bob Brzezinski presented this action item and the associated details at our meeting. The supporting information is included in today's board package. Bob is available to answer any questions the board may have at this time. Based upon the recommendation of the Finance Personnel Committee, I move to award a contract to Winworth Bus for up to 13 light transit vehicles at a cost not to exceed $837,000, as well as a contract to Tesco for up to 6 ADA vans, also referred to as MV1s, at a cost not to exceed $321,000. This action will allow the Executive Director to execute any and all contract documents and do all things necessary to complete the contract awards.
Okay. Motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Adrian. Are there any questions or comments dealing with action item number 2? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Any abstentions? Action item number 2 is unanimously approved.
Action item number 3, revised Board of Trustees Policy number 26. This policy formerly, I can handle this, formerly entitled Earmarking of Investment Equity Funds, will now carry the title Designation of Unrestricted Net Position. This policy will establish a uniform practice of designating the unrestricted net position of the Greater Dayton RTA. Board President Franz Hoagie and RTA CFO Mary Stanforth presented this action item and the associated details at our meeting. The supporting information is included in today's board package. Franz and Mary are available to answer any questions the board may have at this time. Based upon the recommendation of the Finance Personnel Committee, I move to approve amended board policy number 26 as outlined in today's board package.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sharon Howard. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Any abstentions? Action item number 3 is unanimously approved.
That concludes the action items. However, I am happy to report that the November 2015 sales tax receipts total $3.22 million compared to November 2014 receipts of $3.08 million. This represents an increase of $132,000 or 4.3%. Cumulative receipts for January through November 2015 total $35.28 million. This compares to January through November 2014 receipts of $33.78 million. Year to date, this represents an increase of $1.5 million or 4.5%. The audit of the 2015 financial statements is currently in progress. The statements will be finalized in the near future after considering the following 2 adjustments: recording the December sales tax receipts, which RTA will receive by the end of March, and the results of the actuarial study, which RTA will receive in mid-March. A thorough report will be given later regarding the audited 2015 financial statements, probably in April or May. For the month of January, the net operating income after RTA depreciation is $487,000, which is $221,000 better than budget. This is a result of higher investment revenue and lower expenses for utilities and insurance. The details related to January financials are also included in today's board package. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? I would like to just point out, as you so often heard me mention in the past, that the reserves that we had on hand, we needed for capital equipment. And as you saw today, the number of new buses we are buying or vans. You heard from prior meetings, some buses we have already ordered, and you will hear at future meetings the addition of additional buses. So therefore, the need, and I got to compliment management that they were able to accumulate through very careful management of expenses some dollars that are available for us to update our bus fleet. So I'm delighted that that's there, but I think you will see very quickly that our reserves, while a larger number at this time, will very quickly disappear as we have to buy the buses to continue the operations of the RTA. Okay. That then takes us to the Planning and Committee report. Adrian Hurd, our Vice President, will give that report.
Okay. The Finance, Personnel, and Planning Committees met for a jointly held meeting on February 16th. And while we do not have any action items to bring before you, we do have important updates to provide. Mr. Eckler provided a summary document of activities and events of the Planning and Marketing Department. This included information about the RTA recruitment advertising campaign, February service adjustments, various community how-to-ride sessions past and present, and a summary of MLK's Martin Luther King Jr. celebration activities. Mr. Eckler also mentioned the recent Gold Award for the RTA Wellness Program, dates for the 2016 Read on RTA campaign, and an update on our continuing increase in social media contacts. This concludes my report, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Eckler would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll then move on to the Chief Executive Officer's report. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few items, all informational. The first is, I'm not sure I've mentioned it to all board members. I think I may have told Franz, I've been asked to serve on another APTA task force, and this is related to really the success of the Bus Coalition's efforts in the last year and the reauthorization bill and the little bit of flack that was created between APTA and the Bus Coalition, all of whom are members of APTA. But now there's an effort underway to kind of make sure as we move forward within APTA that our legislative positions and our approach is more unified. So I've accepted that, and we're going to try and tie it to some existing meetings or do some by the phone. But I'll be doing that over the next several months, and hopefully we'll wrap that up this year. I also got to go to Cleveland last Friday. I was asked by Joe Calabrese, my counterpart up there, to sit in on a strategic planning session. And at your table, I've kind of made a copy of this little document that I really enjoyed. It was something they passed out to us. It's a simplified version of their mission and values. And what I really like about, there are a couple things I liked about it, but especially at the very back of it, every employee signs basically a commitment to the values of the organization. And I just thought you'd find that interesting. It's a great little document, I think, especially something similar that could happen here would be good. I also happened to be on a panel with Dan Foley's brother, Mike. So we got to exchange a lot of conversation about the family there. So it was a good trip, and happy to do that for Joe. He's done a lot for transit in Ohio in general. Also, I think most of you probably saw some of the media coverage on the smoke-free bus stop announcement that we did over at Children's Hospital. You know, my favorite part, of course, was Mrs. Nosipo Glenn, who you met last month at our board meeting. She was the star of the show, and as they were filming her comments, somebody elbowed me and said, "You can't buy, you know, public relations like this." I said, "Absolutely not." And you know, she's on our consumer advisory group, which is great. But she did a great job, and that's something that's interesting. The questions are already starting to fly about how the heck are we going to do that, and it's you know, this is something we're going to be encouraging people to refrain from smoking in our stops, but obviously we do not have a smoking SWAT team to go out and attack such issues. But you know, I think it'll be a good project for us, and the timing is important because we actually the consumer advocacy group was pushing this several years ago, and I said we're not just going to go out and spend money to hang new signs where we just hung new signs. Thanks to Brandon and our ITS overhaul, we're having to put new signs up because every bus stop will now have its own number. So on the new sign that's being added, you know, we're just going to put the verbiage in there, so it'll be pretty simple as we go forward. And that'll happen throughout the year as we go forward. Also wanted to mention that last week I went to Columbus, it might have been the week before, and testified at the Ohio House Judiciary Committee on House Bill 222, which is a bill we've been trying to get passed for about 4.5 years, and it's the transit worker assault bill, and it's the idea is to step up the potential punishment for assaulting a transit employee. It keeps running into roadblocks at the Judiciary Committee, and we're told there's some concerns of the county prosecutors. So our folks that lobby for us on behalf of OPTA are meeting with the representatives from the Prosecutors Association to find out what the concerns are. We know the school bus drivers have special protection. We're looking for that level of protection for our employees as well. And we've got a commitment to have some more conversations. And we have 3 local representatives on that committee. And I've offered to meet with all of them individually here in Dayton. And one is already accepted. So we're going to be doing some more there. And finally, I'm going to tell you before you ask, I know the board's been probably saying, hey, where the heck is our next report on the next gen buses? Well, it's coming, and hopefully you'll see an update at the joint committee meetings. We're preparing something now that'll be pretty in-depth on where we're at and where we need to head from here. So unless there are questions, that's all I have to report.
Are there any questions of Mark? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Any new business to come before the board?
No old business.
We now get into public comment. And Carla Pitzinger, I believe you've signed up for,
No one else?
pardon me?
No one else?
No one else. Carla, I believe you certainly have presented before the committee on numerous occasions, and I believe you understand the ground rules that we work under, so there's no need for me to go through all of those. But I do ask you just again to state your name and address, and then you'll have your 3 minutes.
Not my address? Just
Your
my
name and address.
Oh, my name's Carla Pitzinger, 3329 Shady View Road, Moraine, Ohio, 45439. I wanted to mention that I am not just complaining to make a complaint. I really want to thank Mr. Napier for addressing bus driver 3328 personally last January. But I also know, reading your letter, I'm floored about why I am being
Caller.
accused.
Carla, we've in the past asked that you address the board and not to an individual
Oh,
management
okay.
person.
Well, I'm still having problems with this bus driver. I've having to ask several times for a transfer. I gave this document here to a Gateway shelter guy, Matt Lee, who has spoken over here. He's disabled. And when the weather's bad, it does take a little while to go from the awning to the bus stop, which is only 30 feet away. But he can't walk very fast. I have never asked for a 3 or 4 minute layover at Gateway. I was just asking, the bus driver to, wait a second here. I just would like to, I'm just deeply offended. Please tell me where to take this because I'm still having problems, and I have had Mark Stankiewicz forward the March complaint to Mr. Napier, who he says he hasn't received it because that addresses my first complaint on this bus driver, and that he was for three times not picking up the guys at the Gateway, saying he was running late. And I'm just getting retaliated about it still, and I'm just deeply offended that the one concern I have here on just this one bus driver is just not being dealt with. And I'm like I said, I'm just deeply offended. Thank you.
Jim and Mark, I believe both of you have looked into the complaint at the last month. And I don't know, is there anything you would like to add to that as a result? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Since we have no other public comments, we then go to board member comments. I have two I'd like to bring before. The first is certainly a very sad note. Many of you remember Jim Newby, the immediate preceding president of the RTA board. He unexpectedly lost his wife. She died on Friday. The funeral viewing will be this Friday, and the service will be on Saturday morning at Holy Trinity Church. That is the church down by the main post office or directly diagonal from Franco's Italian restaurant. So our sympathy goes out to the Newby family in that regard. On a more positive note, I'm happy to report that Adrian and her husband were prominently mentioned in the Dayton Foundation publication stating how much they do for the community and the generosity and the leadership roles they have taken within our community. And most recently, Adrian was in the newspaper regarding her role on the Troutwood Board of Education and the recognition that they received. So congratulations to you, Adrian.
Thank you.
I have no other comments. Does anyone else have some comments?
I do, Mr. President. I just wanted to make a note that the December performance indicators are in, and that both the fixed route and paratransit on-time performance numbers were not only up, but December was the highest month of the year for both. And I know that sometimes we get some comments, particularly about the paratransit routes, about people waiting and waiting. But the reality is that for at least the month of December, we had on-time performance of 93.3% for the paratransit routes. And that's a pretty good batting average in anybody's book, and I compliment management and staff for that.
Thank you, Dave, for bringing that to the attention of the board and the committee.
Management loves El Nino.
Mr. President, I would just like to say 2 weeks from today, the NCAA First Four will be kicking off in our community, so we will have all the eyes of this country on Dayton. So I know full well that the RTA is prepared for the influx of visitors that will be in our city, and I know we will showcase our service very well.
Wonderful. Any other comments?
Franz?
Yes.
Did you want to deal with an issue under old business?
Fine, please.
We had we did have a comment made at the last board meeting. Oh, look at that, and it came on just as he promised it would. And it was such a busy meeting, it may have gone somewhat unnoticed, but one of the customers, I felt, lodged a complaint about what you're seeing here on the display. We have had a practice in the past of allowing people to stand on wheelchair lifts, boarding onto project mobility vehicles. We have also had at least one incident where a person has fallen off that lift, and I intentionally chose this shot where you can see how high up that platform is when the lift platform reaches the floor of the bus. So some time ago, I took the position we weren't going to allow that anymore. If a person was ambulatory but didn't want to use the steps, we were initially using wheelchairs that we had in the buses for people to sit on while they rode up the lift. And there were some people that apparently were somewhat offended by that. My concern is their safety first more than anything else. Jim's people were talking to some of the operators who said we were using a standard wheelchair, and for some larger folks it was a problem for them. So they offered the option to switch to this device, and that's what Mrs. Smothers was referring to at the last meeting. This is it. We think it works really well. These are our two supervisor instructors demonstrating how it works. The bottom line is quite simply, I don't think we can give on the safety issue here, and it's a mistake, especially since you can't see it easily, but there's a strap that goes across there before the lift leaves the ground, and to me that's just another tripping hazard for someone who's standing, and especially persons who have a walker otherwise may have some issues already with mobility. So this is our position. It could be challenged legally, but I'd rather take on that challenge for now and protect the interest of the safety of the customers and our liability. So that's the net result. There's actually a training video of this we use for the operators if anyone would like to see it. But I just wanted to follow up with that. I think it's important to note that when we do things, sometimes people don't understand why, but it's purely for safety reasons, and you can only imagine what a claim would be for a person coming off a platform like that. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Just a comment, Mark. I'm glad our legal counsel here is sitting here on my right, but that all operators need to understand this is across the board, and that you cannot have individual case-by-case discretionary decisions made on safety. so that if a particular passenger says, well, how about if we bend the rule just for me because I don't like it, we cannot have that as an organization.
Well, Mr. Napier and company know my position on that is identical to yours. In fact, I recently personally dealt with an operator who apparently decided there was some option involved there, and in fact, literally right out in front of this building. And, you know, we just can't have that. So we're absolutely doing it. We're taking a hard line on this because it's just that important.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to say that last board meeting, when it was mentioned, it was referred to as a shower chair. And I don't know if those are used in showers or not, but it's much more substantial than what I envisioned in my mind when it was first mentioned. And I think this is an excellent way to keep our consumers safe. And so I just wanted to mention that. You know, sometimes people say a word, and what you think or what you visualize in your mind is not necessarily what is being seen. When I heard that when it was mentioned as a shower chair, I almost thought of a bench, you know, like just a little bench with no back support, no side support. And I see that this has support on all three sides. So I think it's an excellent alternative to someone going up that lift versus standing and falling.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All excellent comments. Appreciate those. Hearing none, we then move on to item number 12, an executive session, but I believe there's no need for an executive session. And just before we adjourn, I'd like to point out that we have a board meeting. The next board meeting is April 5th, and the next committee meeting is the 22nd of March. If there's nothing else to come before the board, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm sorry, there's one thing, I apologize.
Excuse me, you have to sign up for this to be able to speak before the public.
But I'd be
May I-
happy to speak to you after the meeting.
Yes, please do. Then you could speak with Mansfield. They'll be here, that you could talk to them. Okay. Since there's no further business to come before the meeting, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.